Alright, I'm not sure if this is common knowledge or not, I know it wasn't for me, so did you guys know that Starkiller Base from episode 7 is actually the planet Ilum? You know, the one where the Jedi get their lightsaber crystals?
It's a remote ice-covered world, and one of the galaxy's primary sources of lightsaber crystals.
Now, I'm not 100% certain, but there are two rather big pieces of evidence of that in Star Wars Fallen Order. Initially, you visit Ilum to construct your own lightsaber, but to your surprise, there is some Imperial presence there. You don't really make much of it other than testing your newly constructed weapon on the poor guys, and you just move on with the story. However, if you come back after you've completed the game, the planet looks rather different. Have a look. There's quite the similarity between it and Starkiller Base, isn't it? Now, the only information I was able to gather in the game while looking around is that the Imperials are mining the resources of the planet, mostly the crystals, for some nefarious reasons, and that's about it. But in addition to the striking similarity from orbit, you can also stumble upon another section that looks very similar to the trench when Poe and crew fly around and fight the First Order in the 7th film. It is located right about here, and this is where you land. So, given the changed look of the planet and this small section here, I just don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's fairly safe to assume that Ilum was indeed turned into the Starkiller Base after the Jedi fell and Sidious and Darth Vader took over. Now, with that said, I want to point out that I'm not a huge Star Wars lore guy. I do love the original trilogy and some of the games, but that's about it really. So I'd like to offer some thoughts and some questions, and perhaps those of you with greater knowledge on the matter will help me answer them and piece everything together. The first thing I wonder about is whether at this point they already intended for the planet to be turned into a super powerful, star-killing, planet-destroying weapon, or were they just mining the resources and only later figured out what a huge potential this thing has? I think the latter seems more likely. Perhaps it was only during Snoke's time when they got the idea to use it as a weapon. Because otherwise, I wonder why they needed the Death Star at all, if they already had the Starkiller Base. Although I don't think that makes much sense, because in episode 6 we already see that construction of the Death Star has recently begun, and that is how many years before the events of this game? Perhaps 7 or 8? I'm not sure how much exactly is the difference in age between young Cal and present-day Cal, but it should be somewhere in that realm. So it could be that the original Death Star was already in a good stage of development, and only then did they realize that they can build the Starkiller Base? Either way, I suppose that explains, at least in part, how the First Order had the means to come up with such an insane superweapon. It appears that the infrastructure was already laid out by the previous regime, and Snoke only had to finish the job, so to speak. I also wonder, and that's probably my most important question, why wasn't the Republic immediately aware of the Starkiller Base in episode 7 or even earlier?
They've somehow created a hyper-lightspeed weapon built within the planet itself.
A laser cannon.
We're not sure how to describe a weapon of this scale.
After the fall of Sidious, there must have been some data left about it. I don't know, it's a little hard to believe that such an enormous project can remain a secret, especially given that it's Ilum we're talking about. I mean, episode 7 takes place how long after the fall of Sidious and Vader? 30 years, was it? A very long time, basically, and we're supposed to believe that during this whole period, neither the Republic nor the Jedi bothered to check what's going on with one of the Jedi's most sacred planets? I find that hard to believe. So anyway, I guess that sums up everything I had in mind for this video. If anyone can fill my gaps in the comments, I'll appreciate that. And that was it. Thank you very much for watching, thank you for your support, and until the next video, stay tuned and be good.